I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 4 o'clock, and this is the Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting for the City of Meridian. It is July 27th, 2022. We'll start off with roll call. Indicate if you're present. Kaylee Philippi.
Here.
Megan Larson.
Here.
Rand Spywick.
Here.
Scott Walters.
Here.
Steve Corey. Here. Taryn Richmond. And Mark Nelson. I'm sorry. My mind is definitely not on this. Sean Keating. Here. And Tom Oddie. Here. Quorum being present, we'll go ahead and continue. I'll go with the ex officio members next. Rochelle Klein.
Here.
We'll go ahead and pick up the agenda next. A draft agenda was sent out to you. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. Are there any comments on the draft agenda or?
Mr. Chair, no comments. Move to approve the agenda as written.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft agenda be approved as written. Are there further comments? Any comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. The first item on the agenda after adoption is approval of the minutes from the June 22nd meeting. Are there any comments on the draft minutes?
Mr. Chair, no comments. Move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft minutes for the June 22nd meeting be approved as written. Further comments? Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of approving the draft minutes as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Next, we move on to staff program reports. First item for us is the Q2 tonnage report. Joanna, I believe you're giving that to us.
I am. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. And hopefully you can see, has it shared? Not yet? Okay. There we go. Let's get over my technical. There we go. All right. So this is a quick update on the recycling and trash data from the city. And the first information is the city has topped 40,000 households with an estimated population of 133,000. And then we have our residential trash tons by month per year. I will mention last year in June, we had a challenge with the data. It was researched and a correction was not located. So we are aware, but we were unable to, for public services and staff were unable to locate the challenge with that. So when you notice that anomaly, we are aware of that. So more interesting as we move into the trash pounds per household per month. We can see in 2020, we had many people at home and cleaning out their garages. And we have an increase in trash and we are significantly lower per household now. And conversely, we look at recycling and although it looks like recycling has increased in general, it's relatively static compared to last year at this time. On a positive note, we have an increase to 614 grass accounts. And the glass accounts has stayed stagnant at 177. That's it for the data for this month. Any questions?
Members of the commission, do you have any questions for Jonah? Thank you for presenting that. There are no items under old business, so we'll go ahead and move into new business. And it's bittersweet to go ahead and recognize Kaylee Philippi. You've given us a great year of support, and your input has been very much appreciated. And it's kind of a tradition on here. We go ahead and give you your nameplate, and there's also a certificate here for your service. I know you'll be joining us by video, hopefully in the next month or two, but I guess this is your last physical meeting. So we certainly wish you the best in your future endeavors. If you want to say anything to the commission, you're welcome to at this time.
I've really enjoyed being here, and I just want to thank you guys for welcoming me with open hearts, and it's been fun.
And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is a report on the Community Recycling Fund Q2 report. I guess we've not received anything for a little bit for revenues. So this is just kind of report on the current balance. And the current balance is $73,998.55. With $2,200 reserved for the squishy water bottle project. So an available balance of $71,798.55. Any questions on that information? And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our main item, which is the proposed FY23 rates. I would imagine the first presentation will be from Republic Services. Whoever, step up to the mic and give your name and
Hi, my name is Braden Norris, the finance manager with Republic Services. Our address of business is 11101 West Executive Drive, Boise, Idaho. Okay. Are we able to pull up the memo, or does everybody have a copy of the memo in front of them? Okay. Should we just get going then? Okay. So first off, good afternoon to the Solid Waste Advisory Commission. Appreciate your time. The purpose of our presentation today is to present the fiscal year 2023 rates for solid waste that have already been vetted by the MUBS and finance team. Annually, the solid waste collection rates are adjusted in accordance with the Section 21 of our contract with the City of Meridian, with an effective date of October 1st of each year. To summarize the changes that I'll go through for each of the 6 categories and share the impact to the majority of the, and then at the end, share the majority of the impact of the residential customers. Given that there are multiple services, the majority of our customers from a residential level have a 95-gallon cart. So I'll use that to highlight the financial or the rate impact for those customers specifically. So first off, in terms of the categorical changes that are impacting the rates for the fiscal year 2023, the first one is CPI. So there's some silver lining to the message here. The CPI that we're using is the Garbage and Trash Consumer Index. We use the year-over-year change for the month of May. So we're comparing May of 2022 versus 2021, and that was an increase of 5.44%. Now, however, the contract for Meridian has a ceiling of 90% of whatever the CPI is, so we're looking at a 4.898%. And if I use 4.9% here on out, it's really the 4.898. So I will say this, if anyone's been watching the news on the economics, the all items index for the month of June was 9.1%. So given where we're at here in Meridian and we use the trash and garbage index, we're at a better place. So this is good for our customers and the residents. So that way the rates for trash and recycling are only being impacted by the trash index. So the main item there is the 4.898% for CPI. Any questions or comments there? Okay. Next item is the household hazardous waste. So overall, no changes to the customer. Ultimately, what we do is costs are estimated each year at the beginning of the fiscal year and then trued up at the next price increase proposal. So this year, the actual costs were higher by $6,000 than what was previously estimated, which is equivalent to a 1-cent price increase from 18 cents to 19 cents per household. However, Republic Services proposes to waive or absorb the 1 cent and bear the $6,000 burden and not raise that price. So we're keeping it flat with 18 cents. The next component, or I guess let me stop. Any questions there? Okay. So the third item is the recycling service charge, specifically the processing charge that the recycling center imposes on pricing. So based on our contract with Western Recycling, who is the only recycling business partner in the Valley, the recycling processing fee has increased 7.5% year over year due to various factors such as transportation and labor increases. Said another way, they're our partner, they have costs to cover, and we're only increasing to inherently cover those costs, not to make additional margin, just to cover the costs. So with that, we're proposing a 7.5% increase on the recycling charge. And from a household point of view, this would be an 8-cent increase per month for residents. And then, so any questions or comments here?
I'm going to want you to go into detail on that a little later, but
Okay.
I'll do that later.
Okay. The next section is the labor increase. So the Meridian City and Treasure Valley continue to operate in a constrained labor environment. However, the 2021 market adjustment accomplished its intended purpose, and we've been able to fully cover routes consistently over the last fiscal year. We are concerned about the rising cost of living, fuel prices, and inflation that all our employees and residents are experiencing. What we're trying to propose here is that Republic Services formally request that the fiscal year 2022 market labor adjustment be made permanent in the proposed pricing or be embedded and carried forward in the run rate. Our fiscal year 2023 request is consistent with CPI adjustment methodology. So to give an example there, from a residential impact with the 2022 market labor adjustment, we did 11-cent increase for those that have a 95-gallon cart. And so we're just asking that 11 cents carry over and not be taken out. I know there was, this component wanted to be proposed and adjusted if needed, if the market had changed, but given where we're at in our economics and costs haven't gone down, they've only gone up. We're just asking that we maintain that labor market adjustment in the run rate. Any questions there?
If I recall, the motion was made that that would not be a recurring expense since the contract guarantees an increase every year based on your CPI. That was put on as temporary. If it's going to be permanent, then why not amend the contract and just make it bigger than CPI? That's what we're doing.
So thank you for the comment. So just to respond back to that one. So given last year where we were, and it was very difficult to maintain just the labor, and we had drivers that wanted to leave. So in order to be able to adjust them to the market, we did do that one-time adjustment. And given that where we're at right now, we have been able to keep trash off the ground. We've had to pivot in ways and be flexible on our end and how we route, but we're still seeing difficulties. And given that we haven't been able to back down labor rates, we've had to adjust them. We're just, I guess, to your point, we're proposing if we could keep that in the run rate. And then going forward for 2023 and onward, it would just be, like you said, Commissioner Wren, that it would just be CPI on top of that. And for this year, the CPI impact was just 1 cent on the 95-gallon cart. And then for the other gallons, it's rounds to 0 cents, so no impact on the smaller cart sizes. So. Any other comments or questions on that category?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Brayden, can you comment on what you would expect if that CPI market adjustment was not made permanent?
No, great question. So just given right now with the market and just the labor and being able to put seats in truck or put drivers in trucks, there is quite a bit of competition around here. There's drivers that don't have to work the early morning shift. And with just the other opportunities that are out there, it's an employee market. And so we're just trying to stay competitive so that way we're not having to use, temporary labor and just keep it inside to be able to be consistent and keep getting the trash off the ground. So really it's our, just the competition in the area that could be a driving factor that could sway people to leave and just for going for more money. And we all know that most of us, except for Rochelle with her CNG vehicle, that we're seeing the hit on the pumps for fuel, and all of those things add up. And we're just getting the feedback from the drivers that, it's financially tough. So.
Mr. Chair, so I guess I'm trying to follow to help on the council's end as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I know what you're asking, but what are you asking that basically we not take back the adjustment from 22,
right,
and then move forward with the CPI based on that number, but take the current rate and take the CPI based on the current rate?
Right.
That's what I think I'm understanding, which I think
right.
That was the previous conversation, but I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what your explanation was.
Yeah, I was there.
Bob Bennett, 11101 West Executive Drive. So when we went through this last year, we did an unusual rate adjustment for the market. Our total adjustment over the course of a year was 15% for our drivers. And we also did adjustments for other people that work for us. They've gotten 2 market adjustments in the middle, but give or take, it was about a $2 adjustment. It was significant. But if you remember this time last year, I mean, we were struggling. The market had changed quickly. So this market adjustment did exactly what it was supposed to. And from the council standpoint, what they asked is that we agree to 1 year and then we revisit it this year. And what we're asking today is to keep that adjustment, which is about 11 cents per home, in the run rate. But right now we're proposing for next year, only adding the CPI. But we have to ask to keep that in the run rate. Otherwise it does sunset.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I appreciate that because what I was thinking, and I thought this was part of our conversation last year. The option is to do this going forward and just leave it in and take the base rate that exists today and add the CPI on top of it.
Yep.
Or back out the 11 cents, use that number as the base and move back your CPI. Which I think that was a conversation of, do we want to do that or not? So,
Yep.
okay, I just wanted to understand. I thought that's what Ryan was saying, but I just wanted to make sure I had it right in my head.
Yep. And we're not rolling people's rates back.
Right,
We've
exactly.
actually moved the goal line even a little bit further to the right. And we're going to continue doing that, trying to keep up with what's going on. I think the number was north of 11% is what households are feeling right now. So all employers right now are having to be very, very careful of what they're doing to make sure we keep up with that so that our people have a great place to work.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think this was where we wanted to be from last year's conversation, was that the CPI, because that does adjust for cost of living and rates and wages and all of those things, that the CPI would be adequate as long as we left at what we started at for FY22 and moved it forward. It should adjust by that. So I think that's what we talked about as where we'd like to land. So I get where you're coming from now. So thank you.
Yep. And just as a reminder, in a number of previous years where CPI was sub 1%, we were still giving our employees 2.5%, 3% increases in those years. And so that's one of the reasons that this gap kind of started happening. So I think we're in a good spot today. We're actually doing great with candidate flow, but it's still, it's still an employee's market. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Okay. Next category is the disposal fee. So no change there. So that one's simple. The last component is the volumetric excise tax credit. So the federal government once again awarded the alternative fuel tax credit for compressed natural gas as an alternative resource and as an alternative fuel source. And as you guys are aware, our fleet is all CNG that runs in the city of Meridian. And so given that this tax credit is given to us as a company, we feel that it's really due to the residents. So each year that we do get this credit, we give it back to the city of Meridian. And so this comes as a monthly credit of 11 cents per household. So that was in the fiscal 2022 rates. And because we got the credit again, we were able to continue that credit once more. So once the federal government no longer carries this forward, then that would just be an inherent adjustment to the rates. But given that we were given it again, we will use that $52,000 and give it back to the city in the form of a credit to the residential rates. And another thing just to notice too is, given our fleet is on CNG and not diesel, we're one of the few companies that do not have a fuel recovery fee. So a lot of our businesses that we work with, if they're using diesel, you're going to see at the bottom of your invoice or billing as a fuel recovery fee. And because we're able to use compressed natural gas, we're able to eliminate that and avoid passing on any fees like that to the customer. So that's another win in itself. So to summarize, from a residential impact per customer with 95-gallon carts, the annual increase would be 94 cents. And that's comprised of 85% for CPI, which includes the labor embedded, and then the 8 cents for the recycling processing fee, and then just the inherent impact from sales tax of the 1 cent. So any other questions? I know, Commissioner, you said you had another question, but not sure if that got resolved in the midst of the other discussion.
Go into a little bit more detail on the recycling processing surcharge.
Mhm.
Based on your numbers that you guys have been giving to us on a quarterly basis, the underage for recycling for the last 4 quarters was year-to-year comparable, much less than it was the previous year. Now I see your total cost for the fiscal year is within pennies, but I'm not exactly sure how we got there because the quarterly numbers were much less. But after all this is weighed, apparently you feel like you still need the same amount of a surcharge for recycling processing.
Right, so the processing charge, so there's really 2 components. There's the recycling service, which we provide, and that's just based on CPI. And then there's the separate actual processing charge that we get charged from our business partner, Western Recycling. And that component for baling and the labor and all of that, that rate itself has fluctuated from, I got it right here, but from 97.31 to 104.61 per ton. And so that's just strict cost. And that's the recycling realm is volatile, right? Sometimes the market, we're winning and we're able to give that money back in terms of the commodity, the sale of the commodity, or if it's cardboard or plastic, we give that back to the city of Meridian. And right now where we're at in the market, it's where we are taking it is an unfavorable loss, but the trade-offs with, recycling trash, outweigh the seasonality impacts that happen with recycling. Said another way, with our landfill at Ada County, we're able to divert tonnage from the landfill. So to preserve the life of that by using the recycling to as a commodity and keeping it out of our landfill. So ultimately that processing fee is just the inherent cost of the processing.
Following up on the numbers that we've received, last fiscal year, the projected FY overage unreimbursed cost was, $199,927. This last year, it was 200, projected to be 200,443. You've got 195,717. I think the answer that we've got is you've laid out all of these costs very clearly to staff. Staff has reviewed your numbers very closely, and they're in concurrence with your need to go ahead and increase the amount on this rate surcharge.
And sorry, just to clarify, to kind of keep everything same store, because we're looking at a May 2022 versus a May 2021. I took the May trailing 12 months for the recycling charges. So if you're comparing 2 calendar years versus that, call it trailing 12 months, that's probably the disconnect there from the amounts, but it's roughly the same. So sorry.
And I've got a shake of the head from Joanna, so I will trust staff on the review of this. You want to take a breath for a second? I'll ask if anybody's got any question on the material that's been presented so far, and then you'll wrap. Okay.
Yep.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions on the information that's been presented so far? Then proceed.
Thank you. So to propose for the fiscal year 2023 rates, Republic Services proposes that these rates be carried on to the next stage with the city council for final approval for an October 1st effective date of 2022. That's all I have.
Thank you. And just for the record, there are no new line items, no new charge categories that have been proposed. So
Correct.
that's important for council in determining their need for public hearings. And I guess, Bill, I know there's a trigger for a need for a public hearing if there's over a 3% increase, but if it's just because of the CPI, does that trigger the whole need for a public hearing and everything?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, yes, we do that. We've actually worked with Republic over the years in the advertising and the hearing process to get it done, get it noticed to everybody. So yeah, we will hold a public hearing for it. My quandary every year is, and it's because I don't believe we don't have a consistent system throughout the city on how we do this. So we do this as one set by itself. We do parks as a different set of hearings, and then we have a citywide one that goes in late September, which is too late to get these implemented where we want, so that we run through the finance department. So this one is kind of off cycle, and I was verifying with my team because many of the rates go to the council for a discussion to make sure they understand what's coming, and then they go and get advertised and have the public hearing. I couldn't recall, and I told Joanna that I thought I recalled, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what we've normally done in the past, and maybe Mr. Chairman, maybe you recall, and then we did the advertising, or we just did the advertising and brought it to the council.
Since you asked, yes, that is consistent with my memory, is that you do present to council the
Okay.
situation, and then a public hearing is scheduled after they're aware
Okay.
of what the potential increase may be.
Yeah, that is the way we've done it with some of the other ones, and I wasn't sure if this was the one that was off of that type of cycle. So we can get that scheduled. The next council meeting is August 9th. We can work with the clerk's office in scheduling that as a presentation at our work session for either the 9th or the 16th. And then we can begin in the process to get it advertised.
So members of the commission, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just ask you if you have any further questions of our presenter. And if you do, that's great. But if not, then I'll go ahead and release him, and then we'll go into discussion amongst ourselves about the presented material. Is there any more questions or comments on the presentation that's been given to us? Well, thank you for the information, and we'll start doing our work now.
Thank you.
So, members of the commission, routinely, well, we've always taken July and sometimes August to go ahead and make sure that we do our due diligence on this, trying to get this to council no later than around Labor Day, so that they can go through it and review the information and fit in a public hearing as required. And as we've heard, there would be a need for a public hearing. So that's just a framing so that you understand now's the time for a conversation about this proposal, and we'll proceed after we've had a chance to talk about it. Is there any member of the commission that would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, with the exception of the continuation of the labor element of the rate increase, I struggle to understand what we're doing. It's guaranteed in the contract. city council can't vote it down. Whether we recommend it or not makes no difference. Having the discussion of what it is nice. I don't know what action we.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Audi.
In response to Commissioner Spiewak, the 90% CPI is the part that is. The additional things, what council is looking for is our recommendation on things such as recycle processing fee, the labor fee, things of that nature. But the 90% CPI is there are other rates associated with that, or fees, I guess we could call them, that we are making a recommendation to council regarding.
If I may be a little bit more direct on that, it turns out that the proposal that they've got this year is pretty stripped down compared to previous years due to various needs for the city. There have been additional services that have been provided and such. And so we would normally go through all of those, and those, each one requires city council to handle them specifically. As you indicate, this year, it's pretty stripped down to just the mechanical changes. So this year may be a little less to have to go ahead and digest, but that doesn't mean that on any particular year, we might not have a lot more to consider.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I get to add on to what Commissioner Audi said, and maybe he said it and I just missed it, but yeah, I think you have two decision points. One is the continuation of the recycling processing fee, and the second is to leave the increased labor costs as part of the base rate to move it forward as and then be captured by the CPI. I think those are the two decision points that they'd be looking for your this commission's recommendation to move forward to the city council.
Thank you. And then I believe we need to go ahead and address whether to continue the recycling processing fee as MOU 2. Commissioners, any further comments or questions on what we're doing?
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. Given that the recycle processing fee is utterly out of control of a republic, I would move that we always advance that forward. They can't control the rates that they're charged at the recycling center.
Thank you, Commissioner Audi. I think the situation on this is that it's currently an MOU attached to it. And so ours would be to roll it in and forget about it going forward, or whether to go ahead and continue to keep it as a rider, so to speak, with the rate adjustment. And that's certainly within our purview to go ahead and recommend that it be rolled in and no longer kept separate. But Bill, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, Mr. Corey, I would agree. I think if the recommendation of this commission is that, and maybe I'm going to oversimplify the phrasing. As long as the city continues to wanting to do a recycling program, and without any other alternative third-party vendors to use, that we simply create an MOU that continues it as part of the normal rate annually. And it's called out separate in the sense that the CPI doesn't adjust to that. It's based on just what the rate the vendor is charging. But rather than an annual discussion, because really, again, until a decision is made to alter the recycling program, and again, that may be a different question for a different day with a different analysis, that would maybe be the recommendation. As long as you're going to keep recycling, you're going to have to pay this rate.
Just as a bookmark, I would highlight the item for the transfer station. The history on that is it had to be added because Ada County went ahead and adjusted their rates to a single rate for any one providing waste from the city. Conversations on that discussion are ongoing. They'll probably be a little bit more intense in October. And So that's in there in the list because of the current situation for disposal rates, but it's not, it came in on a very specific reason. Members of the commission, any further comments on the subject? Certainly, if the members of the commission have a motion at this particular point, it would be in order. That can range anywhere from asking for a month to go ahead and think this through or review it, or it can be all the way to considering that our information is good at this point and that we are forwarding it to the council for their consideration as proposed. So comments or motions?
Mr. Chair, when it comes to the aspect of the recycling, I mean, do you guys like to do a motion on that? On the increase of the rate? I mean, work in a business that is incredibly the same, where I understand the concepts fully, where when the market went up, we lost employees left and right. So I understand the concept. I'm not sure where everybody else stands on that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Keating, our agency, same thing. I mean, we saw that the hiring rates had to be pulled up 15%, basically exactly what the public experienced. But I think the implication is if we don't make that 11 cents permanent, that Republic has to find that money elsewhere within its revenue streams, right? Because they're not going to cut pay of drivers, right? That's not going to work. So we're not approving that additional rate. I think we're saying that they have to go find the money somewhere else.
Commissioners, if you want to talk more about it or you want to do a motion, I'll do a motion.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to put a motion for the increase in the labor and for the recycling increase be passed to the recommendation. Thank you, Scott.
Let me check and see if I understand what's being proposed. That basically the request by Republic be forwarded to council for their consideration with a due pass recommendation. Understanding that the labor rate would be rolled into the existing rate structure, and then that the surcharge for recycling would continue as a memorandum of understanding included in the package. Is that, am I hearing
So,
correctly?
if we're going to get it right, I guess, I don't feel that I would be okay on voting on the recycling every year, just because of what they really do, like, than just to have it roll every single year without the thought process. I know that it's the only one we have, but yet we just don't want, I don't know. That's the only thing I thought about. Does that make sense? Instead of like
Let me ask you a direct question on that. Are you saying then you would like the recycling fee to be rolled into the single without a memorandum of understanding on it, or to continue to look at the need for an additional charge on an annual basis?
To look at a need.
On an annual basis. Okay. Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, I would echo Mr. Keating's thoughts on that particular item. With a single provider in town, I don't think it's advisable to just let it roll without ever looking at it. I understand that we don't have a lot of choices, but that's a situation that potentially is trouble.
okay, so did I capture your motion then correctly, then that you're recommending that the proposal from Republic Services be forwarded to council for their consideration with the due pass recommendation, keeping the recycling processing fee as a memorandum, an attachment that will be reviewed on an annual basis?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and now one last chance. Bill, did I get that right?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I believe so. I think I understand the motion. I think that that is correct. And I would agree that, and without having heard from Republic, but I'm sure Republic would love to pay that money to themselves. So I'm sure they're going to be looking for other ways to try to curb some of those costs and try for the alternative routes for that. So I think it is probably still wise, although, as you said, with one vendor in town, as long as we keep doing that the way we've been doing it, I just don't know that we're going to always be doing it the same way. I think you got it right.
And just as an aside, I do know that Republic has made recommendations and suggestions to Western Recycling on potential alternative markets for marketing the materials. And I know that's been received and they've handled it at times. So above and all this, thank you for going beyond, well, and looking at that as a business relationship between your two firms. So anyway, to get back to the conversation, a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the proposed rates for FY23 as presented by Republic Services be forwarded to council with the due pass recommendation and maintain the recycling processing fee as an attached memorandum of understanding. Are there further comments?
I would just like to note, Mr. Chair, that on the matrix that we're provided about rates in our other cities and in unincorporated Ada County, while some jurisdictions are not increasing their rate based on this, Meridian residential is about 4.34%, Star is 4.96%, and Boise is 28.3%. So I think given conditions, we're still doing reasonably well here in Meridian.
I'm going to go ahead and bring Joanna in on this to go ahead and talk about the handout that we received for the comparison of fees between the municipalities. Please.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, so these are the rates as they stand right now. We're not all on the same cycle as to when their rates are increased. We're not all on the same contract. Boise's fiscal year is the same as ours, but their contract is more complex and takes longer to determine. So although you may not see increases in some of these cities, their rates have not been adopted yet for the upcoming year. We have our proposed rate. Our current rate is 2166. I should have that's the proposed 2260 for 2023. We don't have the proposals for the other cities yet. And Eagle is currently in contract negotiations. I have no idea where that's at, but they could see a change in their rate. Generally, I would expect to go up. Is there any other questions I can answer in regards to this?
Thank you, Joanna. I do want to acknowledge the fact that that was a request we made last month, and I appreciate you pulling this information together and providing it to us. That's always one of the questions we've got is where do we fit in with the other municipalities that are in our neighborhood? Members of the commission, any questions on this table of rates for the other municipalities?
No questions, but Commissioner already pointed out that Boise does, of course, offer composting services in addition to trash and recycling.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Audi.
comment on Commissioner Keating's motion. My only comment would be, I feel that it would be part of our review and recommendation purview to note that we are, that it would be irregular to adopt into the regular annual approval process without an MOU of a fee that falls outside of the franchise agreement.
I would guess, Mr. Chairman, as the commissioner, I agree with Mr. Commissioner Audi. I mean, I was thinking we were just going to continue the MOU process, and we're going to annually review that. Because otherwise it would make it part of the CPI process, and I don't know that that's actually going to capture the cost. So I think the idea of an annual review of that, I think, is what I thought I thought that's what the motion was, just continue status quo on how we review these annually.
And for what it's worth, that's what I was trying to kind of nail down, is that we would continue to go ahead and look at the recycling processing fee on an annual basis.
Mr. Chair, I was referring to the labor increase.
Labor increase.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that the recommendation of the council, from what I heard in the motion, was to basically leave the 2022 adjustment that was done. Now that is the base rate that we begin this year. CPI 4.898 incorporates that into that. So we basically wouldn't, as my questions were to Mr. Bennett, we're not going to back out last year's increase and use that as the base rate. The recommendation was leave it as the base rate as what we are going forward. That's what I thought the motion was.
I definitely misunderstood the motion.
Okay.
So yes, that is what that motion would be, is to go ahead and go ahead and handle this as proposed, which would roll the previous labor adjustment into the base. Certainly at this particular point, amendments are in order, or comments and such are appropriate. Further comments or debate on the subject? Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe we've got a second on the motion yet.
Oh, we have.
Sorry.
So yes, we have a motion and a second on the motion. Any further comments? Going once, going twice? Okay, the motion before us is to go ahead and accept the proposal as written, which includes in that the recycling fee continue as a memorandum of understanding attached to the rate increase so that it's reviewed on an annual basis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
In the eyes of the chair, the motion passes. And so I will then go to staff to go ahead and finalize all this material and go ahead and get it in the proper format to be before council.
We'll, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we'll work with Public Works to make that happen and find a date. Like I said, the next council meeting is August 9th. So the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, somewhere in one of those 3 weeks, hopefully one of the first two. this presentation and give council, if they have time, if they need more information, I'll have a little bit of time so we can get the public hearing started in the very end of August, the advertising, and have a hearing in the beginning of September.
Thank you. So members of the commission, of course, this is our heavy lift item, and I do appreciate your participation in this subject. That is the final item on our agenda. Is there any comments or items that you want to, any commissioner wants to bring to the body at this particular point? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for August 24th. Since we finished the rate increase, I don't really have anything in particular to that is in mind at this particular point. I certainly would encourage anyone that wants an item to be put on our agenda for consideration to bring it forward to myself or to Sarah, and we'll go ahead and get it included in the agenda. And with that, thank you. We'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned, and I'll see you next month.